I'm a veteran Path of Exile and action RPG player and wanted to bring most of the most broken mechanics and interactions of ARPGs into Diablo 4. This build is designed for doing Abattoir of Zir, basically by pulling multiple enemies and killing them at the same time while they are frozen. It'll do the best against grouped tanky enemies, which is how I expect a new endgame dungeon to play out. I've tested carrying the party solo in Nightmare Tier 100. In this video I'll talk about how this build works and how I expect it to scale. This is the first build guide that I've also recorded and actually tried to explain, so hopefully it's understandable. So speaking of broken mechanics, the first mechanic that we use is called vacuuming. It's not a secret, but being able to pull multiple enemies together is strong for a variety of reasons, which I will get into later. I use Raiment of the Infinite to pull enemies instead of Godslayers because 1, I have a Shaco, and 2, the Godslayers has a 12-second cooldown and only works for elite enemies. I think in the higher tiers of Abattoir of Zir, even white and blue monsters will be hard to kill, and you will want to group everything, not just elites. By vacuuming multiple enemies on top of each other, we increase our AoE damage per second and also our single target damage per second. The more enemies that are on the screen, basically the more damage we do due to the ice shards enchantment. The second mechanic that we use that is broken in like every game is freeze and stun proliferation. This is achieved by using the ice shards enchantment along with the shared misery aspect. This basically makes the entire screen frozen for at least 5 seconds every time something gets frozen. You don't even have to attack things after things are initially frozen, as the static ball lightnings clean everything up. The third mechanic we use is called shotgunning. So just to explain shotgunning, is basically where you hit an enemy multiple times with a skill where you normally couldn't hit them multiple times with that skill. So basically we're shotgunning with both ice shards and ball lightning by using the vacuuming from Raiment combined with the freeze proliferation through frostburn, ice shards, and the shared misery aspect. We're also using the ice shards pierce aspect to do even more shotgunning. So to give an example, like let's say there's 5 frozen overlapping enemies like this. If this was a dungeon, teleporting would pull them all together onto one spot. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just using the training dummies. So if there's 5 enemies like this, 5 ice shards are summoned each time this effect happens. So there's 5 because there's 5 enemies, and each shard hits each enemy. So you have 5 times 5 hits for 25 hits from ice shard for without the ricochets. Ice shards has a 40% chance to ricochet, and that, and then basically when it ricochets, it's gonna continue piercing afterwards. So it'll hit even more enemies that are overlapping, and someone could probably calculate the math, but like with ricochet and pierce and overlapping enemies, like this enchantment probably hits around like 50 or 60 times per second. That in each of those hits procs lucky hits. For lucky hits, we use static ball lightning. We generate mana, which I'll get into later. And basically you can use this mechanic for any lucky hit build that you want. Basically the combination of Raiment plus Frostburn plus Ice Shards, this generates an insane amount of lucky hits. Unfortunately, the Ice Shards, Greater Ice Shards doesn't work. If you see here, like let's say I spec it, it doesn't show up on the modifiers of the enchantment slot, even though I think it should. While for some reason the other one does, like Destructive Ice Shards does show up, but this doesn't make any sense because I mean, one Ice Shard isn't going to hit an enemy 5 times unless it somehow ricocheted 5 times after piercing 5 times, which is not really realistic. So I don't really know why Greater Ice Shards doesn't work, or why they didn't enable it for the enchantment. So the fourth mechanic that we use is Heart of Selig combined with being injured. In Path of Exile, this is similar to being on low life. We have damage reduction while injured on our pants and on our boots. We're also using the resilience aspect, vampiric power, which increases your damage reduction while injured. And then the other thing that we're doing is we're double dipping on maximum life. So life scales both your barrier from this protection passive. Ice armor, I think it just scales like your maximum barrier cap. And then the other thing that maximum life does is it also scales your mana effectiveness, because basically 1% of your life is 1% of your maximum life. You can lose more life before losing mana if you have more life, just because of the way that this scales. We basically took every single life passive almost on the tree, even the 2% ones. Even like this 2% node, see, 2231. It gives almost 300 life for just 2% on the Paragon board, which is, I think, a lot, because this is basically 300 barrier and even more effectiveness on our mana for the Heart of Selig. And then the last thing that this build does, we use ball lightning. Or we use bugged skills. The devs have said that the new content was balanced around the bugs existing, so we might as well use them. Ball lightning is bugged. People that say that it's not bugged are wrong. The first bug is the attack speed rate. This enhanced ball lightning basically gives you 10 times damage, and it can be traced back to the tooltip fix that was in the patch notes. Like, I think what they intended was for the damage to be reduced by 1/3, and also for the damage also to be reduced by 1/3, because this basically makes you attack, 3 times faster. But they left the tooltip damage the same. Like it's 132%. If they actually fix the tooltip, this damage should be like 13%. But they didn't do that. So that's why ball lightning does basically 10 times the damage this patch. There is another bug that not many people know about, which is Frigid Breeze. This passive works for all damage, not just cold damage. So we can sustain our mana, without the chain lightning enchantment, just through lucky hits, basically. I guess I'm using the mana regeneration. If you have not taken damage recently, you can only use this aspect if you constantly have a barrier and never lose it, or if you're using Heart of Selig. Because losing barrier or losing mana does not count as taking damage. And just to go back to the Frigid Breeze, I actually found this bug on the Sorcerer subreddit. Someone thought that Blue Rose was working for someone thought that Blue Rose was proccing lucky hits, while in fact Frigid Breeze just works without Blue Rose. So if you need mana, you can spend, I guess, about 5 points to get the extra mana regeneration. Since I'm freezing things, Hoarfrost is actually not that bad. It's 18% more damage against frozen enemies. And this passive kind of makes up for losing the Devouring Blaze. So, because we're not using Fireball enchantment, so like Hoarfrost more than makes up for the damage loss from not using burning synergies. There technically is one more bug that this build uses, but it's not that important. But it's the Heart of Selig. Apparently it's not supposed to count as spending mana when you lose mana. We don't use the Chain Lightning enchantment, so we're not abusing that. But we are using Mana Shield, and this will proc automatically when you take damage. You don't even have to cast spells. The other thing that gets procced is the Unleash glyph. So taking damage counts as spending mana, but but this procs all the time though, because we're just casting ball lightning. I guess next I will go into basically non-uber unique variants. Like the only thing that's required for this build is Raiment and Frostburn. You can make the synergies work without any of the other items. So like if you don't have a Harlequin Crest or Shaco, you want to use a helmet like where is it? Like this. Basically total armor, maximum life, cooldown reduction, and lucky hit chance while you have a barrier. You could use a defensive aspect as well, because you'd put the crowd controlled misery aspect on your boots. Instead of Heart of Selig, I don't have a good replacement, but you'd want to have armor, cooldown reduction, and then like 2 damage stats. So like +3 mastery skills or Hoarfrost or whatever passive gives you damage. And then, since you're not going low life if you don't have Selig, you could use different pants. You don't have to use the injured stat. You could use Temerity. I think Temerity could be really tanky, especially if you have like 20,000 life. You'd basically have almost 20,000 barrier if you use Temerity. Basically, you would use Temerity plus the Undying vampiric power. I think that would be really strong, and it has the same benefits of also not taking damage, which is really good for this passive. Align the elements. This does not get lost when you lose mana or when you lose barrier. So you pretty much just always have 40 damage reduction, while you're not losing life. Just some comments on the mastery passives, or key passives. You can use all 4 of these at the bottom. Shatter, Overflowing Energy, Veer's Mastery, or Essie's Ferocity. I think Shatter might be bugged, but it's kind of like the Barber from Season 1, except for that the damage from the explosion doesn't crit. And also the explosion doesn't have any lucky hit chance, so this might actually reduce your clear speed if you're not freezing everything. So I actually probably recommend, like, if you want more damage, I would go with Essie's Ferocity instead of Shatter. Or Overflowing Energy even. Like, Unstable Currents might be required for killing some really tanky elites, and you'll be able to safely like reduce your Unstable Currents cooldown because everything will be frozen and like stacked. So you're gonna be your cooldowns will drop really fast with like both Raiment and the Overflowing Energy. Veer's Mastery, only the less damage taken works. The close enemies take 15% damage does not work. But you could take Veer's Mastery if you need to be more tanky and you have more than enough damage. And I guess maybe just some explanations on the item stats. You want life on every piece of gear that can roll it. That's not a unique. So that includes your pants, your rings. Basically, your life makes your barrier and your mana better. On your rings, you want crit chance, lucky hit chance, life, and resource generation. On your focus, you want crit chance, either lucky hit chance, mana recost reduction, resource generation, or cooldown reduction. I'd say the only required stats on your focus are crit chance and resource generation. The other two are kind of up to you. I kind of just like having the lucky hit. The reason that I don't use like the conceited aspect or the Stormswell aspect is because attack speed with ball lightning is bugged. You basically want attack speed to as high as possible for ball lightning. It's better than any other stat. That's why I even take attack speed on the Paragon board. I think I take this one here, Swift Conjurer, for 5% attack speed. Because this gets multiplied by 2, so this is actually like 15% tick rate for ball lightning. And then also you don't always have a barrier up, although you generally should, because everything will be frozen, so you won't be taking any damage to your barrier while things are frozen. But Yeah, that's why I'm using accelerating aspect instead of like conceded aspect. Oh yeah, one more thing. The Paragon board, like I kind of went all out on life on this. Like I even took like the 2% nodes. So like if you want to get more damage, you basically drop these 2% life nodes, and take more more non-physical damage, like here and here and here. So there's like a good like 40% damage here you could take easily if you drop life nodes. The other thing that we're taking is the Enchantment Master. I think this, like nobody takes this, but I actually think it's worth it, especially for this build. It makes the ice shards like conjure faster. It doesn't say it, but it does make them spawn about 20% faster. So this is basically like 20. This Enchantment Master legendary node makes the ice shard enchantments 20% faster, and it also makes 20% more static ball lightnings. So it's effectively a 20% damage multiplier on our enchantments, which is a significant portion of our damage. We only need a crazy amount of ball lightnings against really tanky elites or bosses. Usually like freezing things is, and then just spawning static ball lightnings is enough to kill everything. And then I guess I can just go over the glyphs. We use the depth, just to make the ball lightnings bigger. And then we take the territorial and reinforced, just for more damage reduction. Elementalist is probably the most replaceable, or like when you get the new glyph from the new dungeon, I would replace either Elementalist or the Control glyph with the Tears of Blood glyph, because these are both just like generic damage. Maybe the Control glyph just because it's conditional. You can replace Control glyph, with a damage that is always active. So I would probably replace the Control glyph with the new Tears of Blood glyph. If I need more damage, I'll probably drop Heart of Selig and use like Disobedience on my amulet. This is like the end of the guide for, I guess, what you could call like a low life, freeze, prolif, shotgun, bugged, ball lightning, sorceress build. I'll link the max roll planner in the description. I plan to try the build out on Tuesday, see how good it is. I'll be playing a new PoE league on Friday, but might come back to D4 later before the season ends. I'll try to answer questions in the comments, but no guarantees. The next part of this video is a tier 100 clear from an earlier version of this build, but it does show kind of how like the Frostburn, ice shards, ball lightning, raiment synergy works, and I think that's the strongest part of this build, and you can kind of apply that to however you want. Thanks.
not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I need time to prepare that. time to prepare that. I'm out of mana.